If you're looking for movies where a group of friends or travelers takes a wrong turn and ends up facing horrifying dangers, you are at the right video. At the start, the friends are having fun exploring new places. I enjoy this part because it gives off a travel vibe. There's also a small-town atmosphere and a focus on group dynamics and friendship. Typical of slasher films, there's plenty of gore and sexual content. Don't expect character development or logical decisions, as the plot often relies on characters making questionable choices to move forward. One highlight of the series is its creative, R-rated kills, which feel fresh compared to other slasher films. The villains are deformed, inbred hillbillies who live deep in the mountains and hunt anyone who wanders into their territory. They're not civilized, relying instead on their excellent hunting skills. While they may not be very smart, they are deadly predators. This makes survival incredibly tough for the protagonists, who must navigate the hillbillies' dangerous territory. The constant threat of being hunted adds to the horror. If you can accept the above I have mentioned, this is the franchise you should consider. The watch order for the series is simple, as there are 7 movies. The following is my short reviews for each of the film. Chris, on his way to a job interview, decides to take a detour through the mountains of West Virginia after encountering a traffic jam. He and a group of friends are left stranded in the forest after their cars collide. Looking for help, they stumble upon a remote cabin, home to deformed cannibals. The characters are likable despite their lack of depth. Their efforts to survive and work together make you root for them. The forest setting and the creepy cabin create a suspenseful atmosphere, especially as the first half teases the villains without revealing them. The gore delivers what you'd expect. Though the plot is predictable, the first film stands out as the best in the franchise, offering everything you'd expect from a slasher story. With likable characters, well-balanced of suspense and gore, it delivers a satisfying experience. A group of reality show contestants finds themselves fighting for survival against a family of deformed, inbred cannibals. The contestants are initially annoying, but become more likable as they work together. Henry Rollins stands out as a retired military man who fights back against the cannibals. This sequel has more action and gore than the original, with disturbing visuals and creative kills. Setting a slasher film against the backdrop of a reality show where contestants must face real horror is an interesting concept. While the unpredictability of who will survive adds exciting moments, having so many characters primarily for the body count can make it difficult for the audience to connect with most of them. The focus on creating an all-out battle between the contestants and the hillbillies sacrifices some of the tense atmosphere that made the first film so effective. A prisoner transport bus crashes in a West Virginia forest, leaving a group of convicts and police officers stranded and at the mercy of cannibalistic hillbillies. This time, the story focuses on tough and hardened prisoners, as shown in the opening scenes. As expected, the film begins with 4 college kids encountering the deformed hillbillies before shifting to the prisoners. The bus takes a detour due to a tip about a possible prison break, only to be ambushed by the hillbillies in the middle of nowhere. There are several reasons I didn't enjoy this installment. First, the CGI looks cheap, apart from one kill sequence, and it pales in comparison to the previous 2 movies. The number of hillbillies is reduced, and while the killings and body horror are present, the film doesn't offer much else. Initially, I expected an interesting battle between the prisoners and the hillbillies. However, once the bus crashes, the prisoners take control, holding 2 police officers at gunpoint and forcing them to comply. Character development is non-existent, making it hard to care about the prisoners, who are portrayed as unlikable and obnoxious. At times, I even found myself rooting for the hillbillies, which diminished the suspense and horror typically associated with this franchise. The only sympathetic characters are the police officer and a college girl who survived the earlier attack. The plot also becomes unnecessarily complicated with fighting among the prisoners, diverting attention from the real threat lurking in the forest. Most of the story unfolds at night, with poorly lit scenes adding to the film's flaws. The ending was especially disappointing, as the attempt at a multiple endings approach undermines the character arcs, particularly for the kind-hearted police officer. Overall, this installment fails to deliver the thrills and atmosphere expected from the franchise. A group of friends decides to enjoy a snowy winter by skiing, but ends up making a wrong turn. With heavy snowfall trapping them, they have no choice but to seek shelter in the first building they come across, a sanatorium, a hospital once used to isolate the sick from the rest of society. The opening scenes reveal that this facility once detained hillbillies who were being studied. However, the hillbillies escaped their cells and slaughtered everyone. When the group of friends enters the building, it's clear these killers are still lurking around. Trapped in the abandoned sanatorium with no way to communicate with the outside world, the friends are stalked through its dark, eerie halls. The building's desolate atmosphere, combined with the snowstorm outside, creates a chilling and claustrophobic vibe. The setting adds to the tension as the friends realize they're not alone. This film also provides some backstory for the three hillbillies, explaining how they got their names. While this is the fourth film in the franchise, it also serves as a prequel. On the positive side, the practical effects are an improvement over the third film. However, the character choices, actions, and dialogue remain questionable, which is a recurring issue in the franchise. This aspect continues to be a major source of criticism. A group of college students heads to West Virginia to attend the Mountain Man Festival on Halloween, only to encounter a clan of cannibals. The film starts with some promise, showing the lively atmosphere of the festival of a town. The streets are crowded, and the Halloween setting adds a festive touch. However, inconsistencies soon appear. When the hillbillies cut off the electricity later in the film, the city suddenly seems deserted, especially in the areas where the killings occur, but the festival continues unaffected. The franchise's trademark elements, such as gore, creative kills, and bloodshed, are present. But with most of the action happening in the dark due to the power outage, the kills lack visual clarity and impact. The film also fails to create the suspense or atmosphere that makes earlier entries engaging. The characters are once again forgettable, and the story introduces a new villain out of nowhere, a relative of the hillbillies. This human character is supposedly their leader and a serial killer who's been active for over 30 years. While this addition ties into the title Bloodlines, the explanation is vague and unconvincing. His presence feels random, and most of his time is spent in jail, spewing threats about how the hillbillies will kill the policewoman and others. Ultimately, this entry fails to deliver and might be the weakest in the franchise. This installment follows a young man traveling to West Virginia to claim a mysterious inheritance left by his ancestors. However, his journey leads him to uncover a sinister bloodline waiting for him. To celebrate his good fortune, he brings along a group of friends. Unlike the previous entries, this film doesn't involve a literal wrong turn, but still ends up entangled with the infamous deformed hillbillies. The story shifts its focus to an inbred bloodline, making it the core of the film. Unfortunately, this narrative decision proves to be the movie's biggest letdown. While there are still some kills and the usual scenes of friends enjoying their vacation, these feel more like side plots. The film even tries to establish a lore around this hidden society, but it fails to engage and instead feels forced and doesn't even feel like a proper slasher film. As the final installment before the franchise reboot, it's disappointing. While I initially thought Wrong Turn 5 was the worst entry, this film takes that title without question. The seventh installment of the franchise serves as a remake, offering a fresh take on the franchise. The story follows a group of friends traveling to a small town for a hiking adventure. They are warned by the local hotel staff not to stray off the trail during their hike. Predictably, the group ignores the warning, because what's a horror movie without questionable decisions? Unfortunately, the characters feel less relatable, perhaps due to their shallow development and unremarkable dialogue. It's hard to connect with or feel sympathy for most of them. Some characters appear to exist solely to increase the body count, which detracts from the overall narrative. The major twist here is the replacement of the deformed hillbillies with a hidden community called the Foundation. This tribe, which has existed in the mountains for generations, lives by its own rules and laws, independent of modern society. The concept of an isolated, self-governing tribe is undeniably unsettling, and this shift marks a bold move for the franchise. While some fans might argue that this doesn't feel like a wrong turn movie and could have been titled The Foundation, The change is understandable after 6 films centered on hillbillies. The horror escalates when the group encounters the tribe. Unlike the hillbillies, these villains are intelligent and somewhat civilized, though still primitive and brutal by modern standards. The tribe enforces their own laws, with punishments that include death. These sequences are effective in delivering tension and horror, and the film features some genuinely chilling moments. The movie also incorporates a multiple ending structure, taking unexpected turns when you think the story has concluded. Unlike some films that overdo this approach, Wrong Turn 2021 manages to keep things engaging without going overboard.